This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from around the globe. Get a whole month free at Mubi.com/JaredBauer. On March 5th, 1999, an unfinished cut of Eyes Wide Shut was screened for a Warner Brothers rep at Stanley Kubrick's home. The only others who had seen it were Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, and 2 studio execs. By some accounts, in the aftermath, Kubrick could be heard shouting through the walls that he would not allow a single frame of his film to be altered. 2 days later, the master filmmaker was dead, leaving the powers that be free to recut the film, removing footage that exposes the hidden operations of an underground trafficking elite. Or at least that's what filmmaker Roger Avary recently claimed on the world's biggest podcast.
The movie was recut and changed after his death. And they will deny it.
Did Avary contract the brainworm, or are those ignoring the clues of nefarious censorship walking right past the truth of our post-Epstein world with their eyes wide shut? Few R-rated dramas have lingered in the cultural imagination quite like Kubrick's final film.
You want some eye wide shut situation? Leave, motherfucker!
No. Its influence has seemingly reached every corner of media, from pop stars like Britney Spears and Lady Gaga, to shows like The League of Gentlemen, Mr. Robot, and Party Down.
So nobody has seen Eyes Wide Shut?
Oh, I have. It's the one where Lindsay Lohan plays 2 people.
No, it's the one with the orgy.
To video games like Lust for Darkness. Even an ad for Mexican avocados recreated its own Somerton orgy scene.
Avocados from Mexico.
But beneath the mainstream fascination lies a much darker current, a world of video essayists, podcasters, bloggers, and internet sleuths dedicated to obsessively analyzing every frame of the film with microscopic scrutiny, in hopes of unveiling clues that his alleged silencers may have missed.
Well, we can see upside down and backwards, just like the way Satanists love to read things. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. What is a Grinch? And what is the Grinch stealing? Helena is reflected. Helena is stolen.
This blogger has even written a shot-by-shot analysis of every element in every frame, clocking in at over 154,000 words, which is roughly the length of Oliver Twist. What is it about this odyssey of jealousy, dreams, reality, illusion, and desire that inspires such intense analysis? I mean, it's certainly not the only film about unseen authorities. Is the official line about Kubrick's death too suspicious to believe? Is the evidence of missing footage so compelling that we're forced to conclude foul play? Or is this reaction a manifestation of the very desire the film examines? That on some level, the search for truth is itself salacious, even erotic. Well, to find out, you're gonna have to join me on a journey through the bizarre world of Eyes Wide Shut truthers. Hope you've got your therapist on speed dial, cause things are about to get weird. But first, a quick recap. Eyes Wide Shut follows upper middle class couple Dr. Bill and Alice Harford. One night they attend a lavish Christmas party hosted by the wealthy Victor Ziegler. Both are tempted by seductive strangers when Bill is called upstairs to treat Mandy, a prostitute who narrowly survives an overdose. The next night, Alice confesses that she once fantasized about leaving Bill and their daughter Helena for a naval officer she'd only briefly laid eyes on. Shaken to the core, Bill wanders into the New York night and encounters a series of sexually charged situations, including a patient's daughter who confesses her love, a streetwalker called Domino, and an old med school buddy named Nick who clues him in on a wild masked gathering. Bill picks up the proper attire and sneaks his way into a ritualistic orgy held at the secluded Somerton mansion. One of the masked women warns Bill he's in danger, but he ignores her warning. Bill's soon exposed and confronted by the cult when the woman intervenes, sacrificing herself to unknown consequences so that Bill can leave with only a dire warning to remain silent. The next day, Bill discovers Nick has abruptly disappeared, possibly under duress, and that the masked woman, likely Mandy from Ziegler's party, has died under suspicious circumstances. As Bill retraces his steps, he begins to sense he's being watched, and when he returns to the mansion, he's warned to end his investigation. Eventually, Bill is summoned to Ziegler's where he's confronted about his appearance at the orgy. Ziegler confirms Mandy's identity, but brushes off Bill's concerns, insisting the whole ordeal was nothing but a charade. Bill returns to Alice and confesses everything. The film ends with them admitting that while they're awake now from their illusions, they still need to face the reality of their marriage and their lives. The end. The matter of whether a crucial layer of meaning was omitted from the film ultimately hinges on one question. Do you trust the account of those closest to Kubrick, his producer and brother-in-law Jan Harlan, his longtime assistant Leon Vitali, aka Lord Bullington and Barry Lyndon, and his wife Christiane Kubrick? Or do you think they're shills for a global cabal and or too intimidated to speak the truth? For the official story, I'll be referencing these three texts, and for the counterclaims, I'll be drawing from the good ol' internet. So let's dive in. Most theories deal in some way with the notion that the movie was unfinished when Kubrick died. Now, this is true, but the details matter. In the Kubrick archives in London, there's a list of remaining tasks, mostly technical, like adjusting dissolves, adding VFX to flashback shots, re-recording lines, mixing audio, replacing music for a couple scenes, and superimposing digital figures during the orgy to appease the MPAA. But is this all Kubrick wanted to change? Ask actor Todd Field and he'd say no, Kubrick was a perfectionist and definitely would have kept tweaking if he'd lived longer. Ask Leon Vitali though and you'll get the opposite answer. Kubrick was adamant, it was done. But if you dig deep enough online, you'll find claims that the official Hollywood line conceals far more deliberate and nefarious alterations, including 24 minutes of mysteriously missing footage so damning that Kubrick's death was the only way to ensure its erasure. Those who allege to have seen this footage, none of whom were involved with the film by the way, make two major claims about its contents. The first is that it explicitly connects the Somerton elites with real-life satanic or occult organizations, including a scene during the orgy sequence in which Bill happens upon a room marked by a pentagram on the floor. There's no record in the Kubrick archives of this scene ever being shot, nor has any cast or crew member acknowledged its existence. But, according to online sleuths, traces of occult symbolism weren't completely eliminated. Subtle hints of Kubrick's original message, they claim, are hidden in plain sight. For example, the name of Alice's almost seducer, Sandor Sebast, is suggested to be a reference to Anton Sandor LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, even though Sandor is simply the Hungarian equivalent of Alexander, a fairly common name. The mysterious censors may have removed the pentagram scene, but they weren't meticulous enough to erase the other stars still scattered through the film. During Alice's encounter with Sandor, multiple 5-pointed stars can be spotted in the Christmas decorations, along with a display resembling the Star of Ishtar, an emblem often linked to pagan and occult traditions. More pentagrams are found in Helen's drapes, on the walls of the toy store, and even on the window of a Barbie doll box, all purportedly of symbolic significance. When Bill enters Sharky's, the decorations above him are shaped like horns, a prop that reappears at Victor Ziegler's house, again evoking the Prince of Darkness. The Somerton orgy scene is of course a hotbed for occult interpretations. Nightingale says the party starts at 2 a.m.
Delegates started there around 2.
Right in the heart of the so-called witching hour. Some argue Red Cloak represents Satan not only because he's, well, red, but because he moves counterclockwise. Much is also made of the vocals during the ritual scene. Specifically that they're comprised of a Romanian liturgical chant played backwards, implying a subversion of the sacred. You know, devil stuff.
The original vocals, it's a Latin Romanian chant, I believe, played backwards. It's inverting it and it's making it overtly satanic.
While the backwards chant part is accurate, you'd be hard-pressed to find evidence that Kubrick chose it for that reason. The track Masked Ball is a slightly reworked version of Backwards Priest, a piece that predates the film. According to the composer Jocelyn Pook, Kubrick was drawn to it for the same reason she made it, because it sounded, quote, weird. People also point out that in preparation for the film, Kubrick researched the book Cult and Occult by Francis E. King, specifically the chapter on sex, sin, and sacrament, but here's the thing. Kubrick was famously thorough in his research, reading dozens of books for every project. It's not controversial to say that the Somerton elites are in some kind of occult-interested secret society. That part is obvious, but just because he explored real-life occult literature, and even if he laced the film with ambiguous imagery to emphasize that association, it doesn't necessarily follow that he's making a statement about actual occult cabals. He could just be looking for inspiration. Same with the pentagrams at the party. Even if it was deliberate, it could just be because Sandor is, like Lucifer, a seducer. And finally, the smoking gun, that Kubrick died exactly 666 days before New Year's Day, 2001. Okay, I get it. He made a film with the year in the title and 666 is the mark of the beast, but so what? But before we get into the second major theory, I want to tell you about this video's sponsor, Mubi. Mubi is a curated streaming service bringing you hand-picked cinema from all around the world. Not only does Mubi have an incredible selection of films from iconic auteurs to emerging visionaries, but they've recently become a hero of mine after they took a huge risk and distributed one of last year's best films, The Substance, and boy, did it pay off. Every single film is selected by Mubi's team of cinema lovers, and I'm constantly learning from their knowledge. As someone who loves digging deep into the ideas buried beneath the surface of films, Mubi is a treasure trove of exciting movies full of unique perspectives. Right now in the US, they're streaming my favorite TV show ever, Twin Peaks. R.I.P. the GOAT, David Lynch. Episode 8 from the 2017 Twin Peaks series is likely the greatest thing ever put on television, so if you haven't seen it, now is the time. They're also streaming Enter the Void and Antichrist in the US, which are both, chef's kiss deranged. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Jared Bauer. That's mubi.com/Jared Bauer for a whole month of great cinema for free. These guys are straight up warriors of cinema, so give them a try. And now, back to the show. The second major assertion is that the missing footage portrays the Harfords surrendering their daughter to this dark network, where she presumably meets a similar fate to Milich's daughter. By revealing the hidden truth about real-world trafficking rings, Kubrick and the evidence had to be silenced. One blog even claims that Kubrick told Kidman that PDF files rule the world. While rumors persist of a scene depicting horrible things happening to Helena, these are not worth humoring. The chances of such a scene having been shot are virtually zero. But like the occult thread, this theory also brushes up against an actual unresolved mystery: a missing voiceover narration.
It's missing a narration. It's missing a third-person narration.
Now, the Kubrick archives do contain evidence that voiceover was considered in various drafts of the script, both in third person a la Barry Lyndon and in first person a la A Clockwork Orange. However, whether or not Kubrick intended to insert them into the final cut remains uncertain. The existing voiceover drafts feature mostly mundane descriptions of Bill's inner thoughts, which could have been easily inferred by the strength of Cruise's performance, so it's plausible they were taken out because they weren't necessary, not because they revealed something sinister. But the irrefutable proof of omitted footage that Avery and others point to happens in this moment. Yup, that was it. Here, Alice is ostensibly ushering their daughter into the care of these two extras, who were possibly also extras at Ziegler's Christmas party, linking them to the Somerton cultists. Had the film not been doctored, this would have been made overt. But Helena is running around solo throughout this entire scene, and as Paul Thomas Anderson reported when he visited the set, this was not a huge, lavish Hollywood production.
No, we talked about the size of his crew, because he had like 6 people.
Amazing.
Kubrick kept things intimate, so it's more than believable that he just reused the same extras, if they're even the same people. It's also been suggested that the letter given to Bill outside the mansion originally outright demanded that he trade his daughter, but was reshot to display a vaguer, less revealing threat. Again, no notes of this in the Kubrick archive, but who knows? Oh, also the exterior of the Somerton Mansion was once owned by someone of the Rothschild family, and one of the models mentions Rockefeller Plaza.
I was doing a photo session in Rockefeller Plaza.
So, yeah. There's also an anecdote in co-writer Frederick Raphael's memoir about his collaboration with Kubrick, in which he recounts faxing him an FBI report about a society of elites obsessed with lurid pleasures called the Free. Kubrick demanded to know where he got the information, and Raphael confessed that he made it up, essentially auditioning a backstory for the Somerton elites. While some like to focus on the intensity of Kubrick's reaction, it's unclear in the memoir if he was scared of revealing something dangerous or simply concerned about looking foolish for referencing something false and paranoid. Those are what I call the mainstream theories, but they really just scratch the surface. There's so much even weirder stuff out there that, yes, I watched for this video. My personal favorite is that Kubrick faked his own death so he could stage the World Trade Center event in a studio, just like he did for the moon landing. The evidence? Bill passes a restaurant with the address 237, the same number as the iconic room in The Shining, a film in which Kubrick apparently all but admits his involvement in the cover-up. YouTube videos have linked the film to Pizzagate, hours-long watch-alongs claim that this is a recreation of an IRL occult mind control ritual, timetables have been made to confirm the possibility of assassins harassing Nick and killing Mandy in the same night, and some have freeze-framed this news article, pored over its content, and come to the conclusion that because some of the adjacent articles are real, Kubrick is trying to tell us that the events in the film are also real. But if there's one thing that's clear from the reports, it's that Kubrick wasn't interested in depicting reality, but in crafting a gray area between dreams and waking life. According to Raphael, Kubrick's most frequent note on drafts of the screenplay was to follow Schnitzler, referring to the book on which the movie is based, Traum Novelle by Arthur Schnitzler. Not only does the title literally translate to dream story, but Raphael interpreted the entire novel as one big dream. Kubrick was really into dreams. Diane Johnson, the co-writer of The Shining, reported that Kubrick was fascinated by Freud, who Schnitzler knew in Vienna. And by and large, the completed script sticks pretty close to Traum Novelle's beats, just updated to 90s New York instead of end of the century Vienna. Some of these theories hinge on the uncanny elements of the film, like Milich's daughter whispering what kind of cloak to get, but like the novel, it's less about conveying information about the real world and more about inducing a psychological state, about drawing the viewer into a space suspended between fantasy and reality. For example, the film's setting. Most of the New York exteriors were filmed on a soundstage outside of London. In some shots, Kubrick even uses rear projection, an old Hollywood technique that these days reads as deliberately artificial. This New York doesn't quite resemble the actual city at the turn of the millennium. It feels more like a nostalgic projection of Kubrick's long-distant memories, an idealized vision of his birthplace, which he hadn't visited in decades, complete with nostalgic touches like an old-fashioned connichery. Kubrick also plays with some uncanny doubling. For one, there are a lot of redheads. All the women on his sexual odyssey in some way resemble Alice. Marion, Domino, Sally, Mandy, many of the models at the orgy, as if on some plane of reality, Alice was also there that night.
So many. I don't know how many I was with.
Marion's fiancé is a dead ringer for Tom Cruise, and two different actresses play Mandy, Julianne Davis at Ziegler's Bathroom and Abigail Good at Somerton. Also, the music during the orgy scene doesn't quite make sense. Nick Nightingale is playing the organ, and it's suggested that the vocals emanate from Red Cloak, but where are the strings coming from then? Is the music part of the film's soundtrack? Is it performed within the scene? It's kinda neither. Theorists like to dwell on the on-the-nose signage throughout the film, like the headline that reads "Lucky to be alive" or the sign that says "Nipped in the bud." But again, it's less about revealing truths than visualizing Bill's state of mind, his paranoia after escaping Somerton, and his sexual frustration. Our eyes are wide shut, perhaps not because we're willfully blind to the truth, though there's definitely an element of that, but because we're stuck in a place that isn't quite a dream, but also isn't quite waking life either. All these theories ultimately hinge on one key assumption: Kubrick's intent, that he meant to expose certain truths, and that his legendary genius justifies even the most outlandish interpretations. I mean, I've heard weird stuff like Kubrick only wore 3 shirts, he couldn't ride in cars, and this newest one I'd never heard before.
He was a weird guy too. He did like complex mathematics in his spare time.
Maybe he meant he was a chess master, cause that's well documented. Look, the purpose of this video isn't to mock people who have gone down the rabbit hole. It's far from unreasonable to believe elites do secretive, shady things. I mean, that's well established. My point is that these theorists are making a crucial category error. They suggest that Eyes Wide Shut is revealing hidden facts, essentially whistleblowing about the real world. But the power of cinema, especially in the hands of the very literary-minded Kubrick, is less about what it reveals factually and more about what it reflects, about human nature, about desire, about the architecture of power in society. In other words, the greater truth of the film isn't a set of intelligence secrets waiting to be deciphered. It's a mirror held up to the human condition. While yes, Kubrick was a genius, and yes, he had an obsessive attention to detail, that doesn't mean that obsession was with encoding cryptic meanings. In fact, if anything, Kubrick was much more interested in withholding definitive meaning entirely. In his memoir, Raphael recalls the one thing that Kubrick hated the most about 2010, the sequel to his iconic 2001: A Space Odyssey, was that they explained everything. As Kubrick put it, when you tell people what things mean, they don't mean anything anymore. Kubrick wasn't aiming to leave a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a definitive revelation. The bullseye for him was to keep viewers suspended in a state of uncertainty. Per Raphael, he wanted to catch the impalpable and palp that. And that, I think, is why Eyes Wide Shut endures as an object of obsession, because it operates on a primal psychological level. It taps into two of the most powerful subjects of human longing: sexual desire and truth. Eroticism and truth-seeking are both less about possession and more about suspension, the thrill of being on the verge of revelation, the intoxication of nearly knowing, of nearly attaining. Bill's journey is one of constant denial. At every turn, satisfaction is deferred. No love from Marion, a phone call from Alice stops him from having sex with Domino, Mandy prevents him from taking part in the orgy. He even goes back to Domino's, but she's gone and Sally's bad news kills the vibe. Nor does he really learn the truth about the powers that be. Sure, Ziegler tells him something, but he's inconsistent.
Suppose I said that all of that was staged, that it was a kind of charade.
Was it all a performance or something genuinely dangerous?
Listen, Bill, I don't think you realize what kind of trouble you were in last night.
The truth also remains just out of reach, like everything else Bill chases. The psychological potency of both erotic yearning and the pursuit of truth lies not in fulfillment, but in the sustained promise of it, the charged space where anticipation stretches on and revelation is always just out of reach. It's this suspended tension that the film captures so masterfully. The Somerton orgy scene isn't powerful because it's true, which, I don't know, I guess maybe elements of it could reflect reality, but because it resonates with how our minds work. Conspiracies aren't just political, they're psychological, even erotic. When we imagine shadowy elites, we don't just picture them pulling strings, we picture them indulging, laughing, orgying, enjoying the pleasures they stole from us. Eyes Wide Shut is about the impossibility of full access to your partner, to your fantasies, and to the truth. It's no wonder that the film which most palpably captures the feeling of not knowing, of being caught in a limbo of desire, has become the one theorists return to again and again to enjoy its perpetual tease of satisfaction. Hey, y'all, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out Mubi.com/JaredBauer for a free month of amazing cinema. Also, be sure to subscribe, because next time I'm revisiting one of the GOATs, The Dark Knight. Have a great summer, y'all. Peace.